Hello, everybody. So today, what we are going to do is we're going to look at human body cavities. So this is the post. We have a link for the reading. We have my email you can send your assignments into. And we have the questions that you have to complete. Also, make sure you draw and color a diagram similar to the one in the text. So let's take a look at this reading. So this is going to be the diagram you make. It's very similar to this one. So a body cavity is going to be a fluid-filled space inside the body that is going to hold and protect your organs. The cavities are going to be separated by membranes and other structures. And the two largest human body cavities are going to be the ventral, which is the front, and dorsal cavities. Okay, so if you remember, sharks and dolphins, they have their dorsal fin, which is on the back. So that is how you can remember that the dorsal cavity is the back portion. All right, then they are going to be further subdivided. So the ventral cavity is at the anterior or front of the trunk, or basically your, what do they call this? Torso. It's at the front of your torso. Sorry, I was having a little memory lapse there. So it's at the front of your torso, and the organs in that body cavity are going to be the lungs, heart, stomach, intestines, and reproductive organs. All right. The ventral cavity is going to allow for the organs inside to change size without affecting other tissues or disrupting other activities of nearby organs. So the ventral cavity is subdivided into the thoracic cavity, which is your chest, and the abdominal pelvic cavity. So we have the abdominal, which is, those are your abdominal muscles, like your stomach area. And then the pelvic, which is like the pelvis that has the reproductive organs. All right, so the thoracic cavity is going to be the chest, and it is subdivided into two pleural cavities, which hold the lungs, and a pericardial cavity, which holds the heart. The abdominal pelvic cavity is going to fill the lower half of the torso. It is going to be subdivided into the abdominal and pelvic cavity. So abdominal is going to have digestive organs and the kidneys. Pelvic cavity is going to be reproductive organs and excretion organs. All right, now let's look at the dorsal cavity. So the dorsal cavity is at the posterior or back of the body, and it is also going to include the head and the back of your torso. So the dorsal cavity is going to be subdivided into the cranial and spinal cavities. If you know the correct terminology, cranium is another word for head. So cranial cavity is going to be your head cavity inside of your head. It is going to be most of the upper part of the skull, and it is going to contain the brain. The spinal cavity contains your spine. It's very long, very narrow. And it is going to be inside the vertebral column because the vertebrae are going to protect the spinal cord. Okay, so here's the cranial cavity. Here is the spinal cavity. So the brain and spinal cord are going to be protected by the bones, but they are also going to be protected by membrane layers known as meninges. And there's going to be a thin layer of cerebrospinal fluid that is going to be present between two of these layers. And This fluid, cerebral spinal fluid, is produced by the brain, and it is going to give a little bit of extra protection and cushioning for the brain and the spinal cord. So hopefully that all makes sense. Make sure you finish your questions and your drawing and turn them into me.